The invitation arrived on a Thursday. I was standing at the kitchen counter when Daniel brought in the mail, sorting through bills and catalogues with the practiced efficiency of someone who has lived in the same house for 11 years. Late afternoon light came through the blinds in those particular slanted stripes that only happen in February, cutting across the granite in amber bands. The envelope was heavy cream stock with gold embossing. Expensive. My sister Olivia had always believed that elegance announced itself through weight and texture. I opened it while Daniel unpacked groceries, the sound of canned goods settling into the pantry a familiar domestic percussion. The invitation itself was predictably beautiful. Olivia's wedding to Marcus Whitfield 3. June 27th. The venue was some restored plantation house outside Charleston that had been featured in Southern Living. I could already imagine the tasteful arrangements, the string quartet, the precisely curated guest list designed to photograph well. Then I saw the line at the bottom, printed in the same elegant serif font as everything else, adults only. 18 plus strictly enforced. No exceptions. My daughter Lily would be 17. I set the invitation down next to the handmade card Lily had been working on all week. She'd spent hours on it, using this intricate paper cutting technique she'd learned from a YouTube tutorial. Delicate layers of colored paper creating a three-dimensional garden scene. For Aunt Olivia, the card read in her careful handwriting. Congratulations on your beautiful beginning. Daniel glanced at the invitation, then at me. He didn't say anything. He's learned over the years that I need time to process before I speak. It's one of the many small accommodations that make a marriage work, the patient silences that say more than questions would. Lily came home 20 minutes later, backpack slung over one shoulder, paint still visible under her fingernails despite obvious scrubbing. She's a senior now, in the middle of preparing her portfolio for art school applications. Most evenings she disappears into the converted garage we turned into her studio, emerging only for dinner with that particular distracted look of someone still half immersed in creative problem-solving. Mail came, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. She picked up the invitation, read it carefully. I watched her face, that subtle shift in expression that most people wouldn't notice but that I've learned to read over 17 years. The small tightening around her eyes. The way her mouth compressed just slightly at the corners. Then, like a curtain falling, the careful mask of maturity. It's okay, she said, setting it back down. I know how Aunt Olivia is about appearances. That word. Appearances. As if Lily had always understood something I'd been too willing to overlook. She went upstairs to change, and I stood there in the kitchen with Daniel, the invitation between us like evidence of something I'd been refusing to see clearly. That night, I couldn't sleep. Daniel's breathing was steady beside me, that reliable rhythm that usually grounds me, but my mind kept circling back. Not just to the invitation, but to everything beneath it. The pattern I'd been smoothing over for 13 years. I got up at 2 in the morning and went to the hall closet where I keep the photo albums. The ones I'd carefully assembled year after year, documenting our life in the methodical way I document everything. Marketing training, I suppose. Everything tracked, archived, preserved. I spread them across the dining room table under the hanging pendant light, and I began to look with different eyes. Christmas cards for my parents. Year after year, addressed to Emily and Daniel Carter. Never Emily, Daniel, and Lily. Just the two of us, as if our household consisted of only the adults. I flipped through 5 years of cards before I found one that mentioned Lily at all, and even then it was only ear and family ear in my mother's precise cursive. Birthday gifts. I pulled out my planner where I track everything. Lily's birthday is April 14th. Every year, without fail, my parents' gift arrives late. Sometimes a week. Sometimes 2. One year it didn't come until May. Meanwhile, my sister's children received their gifts early, wrapped in elaborate paper, often hand-delivered. I found the family photo from Thanksgiving 2 years ago. My father had hired a professional photographer, insisting we needed updated portraits for the holiday card. In the final image, my parents sit centered with my father's hand on my mother's shoulder. Olivia and her children cluster to the right, everyone angled inward toward the matriarch and patriarch. Daniel and I stand to the left, and Lily is at the very edge of the frame, her shoulder half cut by the border. When my mother sent out the Christmas card that year, she'd cropped it further. Lily disappeared entirely. I pulled out my laptop and went through digital files. Video from Thanksgiving 3 years ago when we'd gathered at my parents' house. The adults ate in the formal dining room while children were sent to a folding table set up in the sunroom. But Lily wasn't invited to join the adults even though she was 14 and my sister's oldest was only 12. I watched the footage, saw Lily sitting alone at that children's table, attempting conversation with cousins who ignored her, eventually pulling out her phone and retreating into digital solitude. There was a journal entry I'd found once when putting away laundry, a composition notebook left open on her desk. She must have been 10. The entry wasn't dramatic or accusatory, which somehow made it worse. She'd written about going to grandmother's house for Easter. Stephanie said I couldn't help hide eggs because those were for the real grandchildren. Mum didn't hear her say it. I helped Aunt Eleanor wash dishes instead. The real grandchildren. I sat back in my chair, feeling something cold settle in my chest. I'd adopted Lily when she was 4, as a single mother. It had taken 2 years of paperwork, home studies, interviews, and waiting. The day the adoption was finalized, my parents came to the courthouse. I have a photo from that day. Me holding Lily's hand, both of us smiling at the camera. My parents stand slightly behind us, faces arranged in what could be mistaken for happiness if you didn't know them well. But I remember my mother's words in the parking lot afterward, spoken quietly while my father loaded the car seat into my trunk. Are you sure about this, Emily? Taking on that responsibility alone? That responsibility. Not of that child or your daughter. A responsibility, like a mortgage or a demanding job. 3 months later I met Daniel at a work conference. He was presenting on sustainable infrastructure design, and I was marketing the architectural firm's green building initiative. We talked for 3 hours over bad conference coffee, and when I mentioned I had a daughter, he asked about her favorite color, her favorite book, what she liked to do on weekends. Not whether I'd given birth to her. Not about the circumstances. Just who she was. On our 4th date, I brought Lily along to a museum. She was almost 5, still quiet around strangers but beginning to open up. Daniel spent an hour crouched at her level, listening to her explain a painting of a garden in her halting, serious way. When we left, he bought her a postcard of that painting in the gift shop. She kept it tacked to her wall for years. When we married, Daniel never once referred to Lily as my daughter. She was our daughter. He walked her to kindergarten. He learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. He attended every parent-teacher conference, every art show, every middle school concert where she played clarinet in the back row of the band. When people asked if he had children, he said yes, 1 daughter, without qualifying or explaining. But my family had never made that shift. I opened a file on my laptop I'd almost forgotten about. 3 years ago, my father had updated his estate plan. As his attorney, he'd always been meticulous about legal documents. He'd sent me a copy for my records, a thick PDF of trusts and provisions. I'd skimmed it at the time, noting the usual distribution structures. Now I searched for Lily's name. I found the relevant clause on page 47. Inheritance distributed to blood descendants only. Adopted children excluded from trust distribution. Assets shall pass to biological grandchildren in equal shares. I read it 3 times. Biological grandchildren. Lily wasn't just excluded from the wedding. She was excluded from ever being considered family in any legal, binding sense. This wasn't oversight or thoughtlessness. This was codified rejection, drafted by an attorney, signed and notarized, filed with the state. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark dining room surrounded by photo albums and evidence. The house was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and the occasional creak of settling wood. These were the sounds of our home, the place where Lily had learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where she'd painted murals on the garage walls, where she'd grown from a quiet 4-year-old into a thoughtful almost adult preparing to leave for college. And my family had never truly let her in. Daniel found me there at dawn, still sitting at the table with the albums spread around me like archaeological evidence. I see it now, I said. He pulled out a chair and sat down beside me. He didn't ask what I meant. He picked up the cropped Christmas card photo, looked at it for a long moment, then set it down. I've seen it for years, he said quietly. I was waiting for you to be ready. That's when I cried. Not dramatic sobbing, just tears running down my face while I sat very still. Grief for the time lost, for the moments I'd made excuses, for every instance I told myself I was imagining things or being oversensitive. For every time I'd asked Lily to be patient, to understand, to give them time. What do I do? I asked. What do you want to do? I looked at the invitation, still sitting where I'd left it. Adults only. No exceptions. I want to protect my daughter, I said. I picked up the RSVP card. In the section asking for meal preferences and number of guests, I wrote in not attending in clear block letters. I sealed it in the return envelope and set it by the door to mail. My phone started buzzing before lunch. The family group chat, which I'd muted months ago but never left, suddenly showed 43 unread messages. I opened it to find a cascade of texts. My mother, Emily, we need to talk about the wedding. Olivia, a mom says you're not coming. What's going on? My cousin Stephanie, this is Olivia's special day. Family should be there. Another cousin, is everything okay? Olivia again, if this is about the age limit, Marcus and I agreed on an adult celebration. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. As if excluding my daughter from a family event could ever be anything but personal. I powered off my phone. Over the next week, I did what I do best. I documented. I created a folder on my laptop titled Family Patterns and began compiling evidence with the same systematic approach I use for marketing campaigns. Dates, photographs, quotes, correspondence. I made a timeline. I scanned documents. I organized everything into a clear, factual narrative. 13 years of accumulated small moments. Daniel supported me without pushing. He took over dinner most nights while I worked on this project that felt like exorcising something that had lived under my skin. Lily noticed but didn't ask, respecting my privacy the way I'd always respected hers. On Friday evening, my mother showed up unannounced. I heard her car in the driveway, the particular sound of her Mercedes engine that I'd know anywhere. She didn't knock, just used the key we'd given her years ago for emergencies. I heard the front door open, heard her heels clicking on the hardwood. Emily, she called out, her voice carrying that particular tone of someone who expects compliance. I've brought the Christmas decorations. I know it's early, but I thought we should start planning now. You're hosting this year, aren't you? We'd hosted Christmas for the past 7 years. My house, my cooking, my cleaning, and preparing and accommodating. Every year I told myself it was worth it to have everyone together. Every year I smoothed over small tensions and pretended not to notice when Lily retreated to her room earlier and earlier as the evening wore on. I came down the stairs carrying the folder I'd been preparing. My mother stood in the entryway, elegant as always in camel slacks and a silk blouse, her grey hair perfectly styled. She held a large plastic bin of decorations, and I could see her car still running in the driveway, more bins visible in the back seat. "We're not hosting Christmas this year," EI said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "It's tradition." "I'm changing the tradition." She set down the bin with a small huff of frustration. "Emily, what is this about? Is it the wedding? Your father and I both think you're being unreasonable. Olivia has every right to plan the celebration she wants." I handed her the folder. "What's this?" she asked, but she was already opening it. I watched her face as she flipped through the pages. The chronological documentation of exclusion. The photo comparisons showing where Lily was positioned versus other grandchildren. The birthday gift tracking. The Christmas card analysis. Copies of family event invitations that specified the immediate family only but somehow included my sister's children. The trust document with the relevant passage highlighted. She closed the folder. Her expression had shifted from irritation to something harder to read. Defensiveness, maybe. Or embarrassment at seeing it all laid out so clearly. "Emily, you're overreacting. This is. When was the last time you called her your granddaughter?" I interrupted. The question hung in the air between us. My mother's mouth opened, closed. She looked away, toward the window, anywhere but at me. "She's not blood," and my mother said finally, quietly. "We were protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" "From making a mistake you couldn't undo. From taking on someone else's child when you could have." "She is my child," I said, and my voice was steady, clear. "She has been my daughter for 13 years. And you've treated her like a temporary guest in this family. That's not fair. We've been kind to her. We've included her." "No," I said. "You've tolerated her. There's a difference." My mother drew herself up, and I recognized the posture. The matriarch preparing to assert authority. "You're throwing away your family over this. Over sensitivity and imagined slights. We've always done our best." "Your best," I said, "it has left my daughter feeling invisible. Your best has taught her that love is conditional. Your best has made her believe she has to earn belonging that should have been given freely. She was never supposed to," and my mother stopped herself, but I heard what she didn't say. "Never supposed to be permanent. Never supposed to matter this much. Never supposed to become more important than maintaining family appearances." "I'd like you to leave now," I said. She stared at me. In 42 years, I don't think I'd ever directly asked her to leave. "Emily, don't be ridiculous. We can discuss this rationally." "I am being rational. I'm choosing my daughter. I'm asking you to leave my house." She picked up the folder, holding it like it was contaminated. "You're going to regret this. You're tearing this family apart." "No," I said. "I'm just stopping pretending it was ever together." She left, taking the decoration bin with her, though I hadn't asked her to. I watched through the window as she loaded it back into her car, her movements sharp with anger. The Mercedes backed out of the driveway too fast, and then she was gone. I closed the door and stood in the sudden silence of my house. My hands were shaking, but I felt something else too. Lighter. Clearer. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long I'd stopped noticing the weight until I finally set it down. Daniel came down the stairs. He'd heard everything from his office. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so." He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself rest against him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beating of his heart through his shirt. That evening, I sat down at my computer and wrote an email. Not emotional. Not accusatory. Just factual. A clear documentation of 13 years of patterns, supported by evidence, presented with the kind of professional neutrality I'd use for a client report. I addressed it to my extended family. Parents, sister, cousins, aunts, and uncles. Everyone who'd been part of the gentle, persistent exclusion. I attached the relevant documents. I provided specific examples with dates. I quoted conversations. I included the trust clause. I wrote, I'm not asking for apologies or justifications. I'm informing you that moving forward, my daughter and I are a package. Invitations that exclude her will be declined. Events that treat her as secondary will not have our attendance. This is not anger. This is boundary setting. I hope you'll choose to respect both of us. If not, I understand, and I wish you well. I read it 3 times. Then I sent it. Daniel read over my shoulder as I hit send. "No going back now," he said. "No," I agreed. "No going back." The responses started coming within an hour. "My cousin Stephanie, I can't believe you'd be this divisive. Family is supposed to stick together." Another cousin, this feels like you're holding the past against us. We were just following social norms." My sister, you're ruining my wedding. Is that what you want? To make everything about you? But there were other responses too. My Aunt Eleanor, who I'd barely maintained contact with over the years, a thank you for this. I adopted a son 30 years ago, and my family did the same thing to us. I wish I'd had your courage earlier. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. A younger cousin, someone I barely knew, I never realized. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. You're right. One of my father's brothers, I've watched this happen and said nothing. That was cowardice. I apologize. I read each response carefully. Some I replied to. Most I didn't. The defensiveness didn't surprise me. People don't like being shown their own complicity, especially when it's documented so clearly they can't rewrite the narrative. 2 days later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then my father called. Then Olivia. I listened to the voicemails once, then deleted them. They all said variations of the same thing. I was overreacting, being too sensitive, destroying family unity over small misunderstandings. Small misunderstandings. 13 years of systematic exclusion reduced to small misunderstandings. We didn't host Christmas. My mother called the week before, asking if I'd come to my senses. I politely declined. She told me I was making a mistake, that Lily would grow up and leave and I'd have ruined my relationship with my real family over someone who wasn't really mine. She is really mine, I said. More than you ever were willing to acknowledge. We spent Christmas with just the 3 of us and Aunt Eleanor, who brought her son, now 32, and working as a software engineer in Raleigh. It was quiet. We ate too much food and watched terrible holiday movies and played board games. Lily laughed more than I'd seen her laugh at a family gathering in years. On Christmas night, after Aunt Eleanor had left and Lily had gone upstairs, Daniel and I sat in the living room with just the tree lights on, the house peaceful around us. "How do you feel?" he asked. Lighter, I said. Sad. But lighter. Grief and relief can coexist, he said. They could. They did. In January, my mother sent a formal letter requesting a family meeting. For the purpose of reconciliation, as she wrote in her careful cursive. She suggested a date and time. My father's house. A formal sitting room where he conducted business meetings. I almost declined. But Lily, who I told everything to by then, said something that changed my mind. Maybe they need to see, she said. Not here. See. I called my mother back. I'll come, I said. But Lily comes with me. There was a pause. That seems unnecessary. Those are my terms. Another pause. Fine. The day of the meeting was unseasonably warm for February. Lily and I drove together while Daniel stayed home. This felt like something we needed to do alone, just the two of us. My parents' house sat in their affluent subdivision, a brick colonial with white columns and professionally maintained landscaping. I'd grown up in this house. I knew every room. Every corner. It had always felt like a museum, beautiful and cold, a place where you were careful not to touch things or make too much noise. My mother opened the door before we reached it. She looked at Lily with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not warmth, but not hostility either. Something more like uncertainty. Come in, she said. A formal sitting room held my parents, Olivia, Stephanie, and two of my father's siblings. They sat in careful arrangements on the antique furniture, the room feeling staged like a period drama. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of Hayes faces looking down with stern dignity. Lily and I sat together on a love seat near the window. I felt her tension beside me, the way she held herself very still and composed. 17 years old and already so practiced at making herself small in spaces that didn't welcome her. My father cleared his throat. He's always been a man of few words, preferring action to sentiment. Emily, your mother, and I have been discussing the situation. We feel you've misinterpreted some family dynamics and would like to clear the air. I'd expected this. The framing of my concerns as misinterpretation. The subtle accusation that I was the problem, not the pattern I'd identified. I haven't misinterpreted anything, I said calmly. I documented 13 years of consistent exclusion. The evidence speaks for itself. Olivia leaned forward. She looked tired, stressed in a way I rarely saw. I love you. But you're making my wedding about you. I just wanted an adult celebration. Lots of people do that. Lots of people do, I agreed. But in the context of 13 years of treating my daughter as secondary, it's not just a preference. It's part of a pattern. That's not fair, as Stephanie interjected. You're reading meaning into normal family dynamics. I looked at her. When was the last time you spoke directly to Lily? At a family event? Stephanie blinked. Looked uncomfortable. I don't know. We don't have much in common. She's 17. You have 2 teenage sons. You have plenty in common. You just never tried. The room went quiet. My mother shifted in her chair. Emily, what do you want from us? An apology? Consider it given. Now can we move past this? I don't want a performative apology, I said. I want you to understand what you've done. I want you to see the impact. We see a well-adjusted girl who's been perfectly fine, and my father said, gesturing vaguely toward Lily. This seems like creating problems where none exist. That's when Lily spoke. "May I show you something?" Her voice was quiet but steady. Everyone turned to look at her. I don't think most of them had ever heard her speak at a family gathering beyond basic pleasantries. My mother hesitated. "I suppose." Lily stood and retrieved her portfolio from the car. She'd been working on it for months, preparing applications for art schools. I'd seen most of it, but she told me there were pieces she was still refining. She opened the large black portfolio case and began setting up pieces on the coffee table, propped against chair legs, arranged on the mantel. Her art always had a quiet power to it, a way of capturing emotional truth through composition and perspective. The first piece showed a dinner table from above. Adults gathered on one side, faces detailed and warm. On the opposite side, a small figure at a separate table, features blurred, fading. The title, written in her careful hand on the mounting board, "A Separate." The second was a series of family photographs, but rendered as negatives, with one figure consistently lighter than the others, almost transparent. Fading. The third showed a garden full of flowers, each bloom detailed and vibrant, but in the foreground, a single stem without a flower, just thorns and leaves. The perspective made it clear you were seeing from that stem's viewpoint, looking at the others. Outside looking in. There was a recreation of a Christmas morning, presents stacked high around some figures, sparse around another. Arithmetic. A portrait of a house full of people, warm light in every window, but one figure standing in the yard. Looking in. Threshold. One that particularly struck me showed an Easter egg hunt, children in pastel colors running with baskets, but one child standing still, holding a dishcloth, visible through a kitchen window. Real grandchildren. Lily set up 12 pieces total. 13 years of feeling translated into art. Each one quiet, observant, not accusatory but documentary. This is what I saw. This is what I felt. This is what happened. The room was completely silent. My mother's hands were clasped tightly in her lap. My father stared at the pieces with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Something like shock. Or shame. Olivia had tears running down her face. "I wasn't trying to make anyone uncomfortable," Lily said quietly. "This is just my experience. My perspective. What I saw from where I stood." More silence. Finally, Aunt Eleanor spoke. She'd come in late and had been standing near the doorway. "I remember feeling like this when I adopted Marcus. The quiet exclusion that everyone pretended wasn't happening. I stopped coming to family events eventually. It was easier than constantly feeling like we were intruding." My mother turned to look at her sister-in-law. "Eleanor, that's not, we never." "You did," Eleanor said gently. "You do. You did it to me and Marcus, and you've done it to Emily and Lily. And we let you because it seemed easier than confronting it." Stephanie was staring at the Easter egg hunt painting. "I said that," she whispered. "I told her she couldn't help because those eggs were for real grandchildren. I was 12. I thought, I don't know what I thought. That I was just stating a fact." "Children learn what they're taught," I said quietly. "Through words and through silence." My father stood up and walked over to the paintings. He looked at each one carefully, methodically, the way he reviewed legal documents. When he reached the portrait titled "A Threshold," he stopped. "I never saw," he said finally. "I never looked. I thought if there wasn't active cruelty, there was no problem." "Exclusion is its own form of cruelty," I said. "Just quieter." Olivia wiped her eyes. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't think about the context. I just wanted. God, I don't even know what I wanted. A perfect day. A celebration that looked right. Looked right to whom? I asked. She didn't answer. My mother stood up abruptly and left the room. I heard her heels clicking down the hall, heard a door close. The powder room, probably. She'd always retreated there when emotions ran too high. No one spoke. We all sat with the art surrounding us, the documented evidence of a childhood spent on the periphery of a family that should have embraced her. When my mother came back, her makeup was reapplied but her eyes were red. I need time, she said. To think about this. To process. Take all the time you need, I said. But understand this, Lily and I are a package. Always have been. Always will be. If you want a relationship with me, it includes her. Not as an addendum. Not as something you tolerate. As my daughter. Your granddaughter. I stood up, and Lily carefully packed away her art. We should go, I said. My father walked us to the door. At the threshold, he put his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have been better. I should have seen. Yes, I agreed. You should have. We left them there with the art and the silence and whatever thoughts they were finally, belatedly, willing to have. In the car, Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, do you think anything will change? I don't know, I answered honestly. Maybe. Maybe not. But we've done what we needed to do. We've told the truth. What they do with it is up to them. She nodded, looking out the window at the familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood. I'm not angry at them, she said. That's the weird thing. I'm just, tired of trying to fit where there's no space for me. You never have to do that again, I said. I promise. The months that followed were quiet. Some family members reached out tentatively. My cousin James sent a long email apologizing for his silence over the years. Aunt Eleanor and I began meeting for coffee monthly. Building a relationship we'd never really had. Her son, Marcus, connected with Lily on social media and they started sharing art and coding projects. My parents sent a card. Not a text, not an email. A physical card with handwritten notes from both of them. Acknowledging harm. Asking for time to learn to do better. Requesting the opportunity to try. I showed it to Lily. What do you think? She read it carefully. I think people can change if they want to. Whether they want to remains to be seen. Wise beyond her 17 years. Olivia called 2 weeks before the wedding. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. I'm changing the format, as she said without preamble. It's not adults only anymore. I want Lily there. If she'll come. If you'll both come. Why? I asked. Because I sore. Really sore. And I'm ashamed it took your daughter's art portfolio to make me pay attention to what I've been doing. What we'd all been doing. This isn't about the wedding, I said. You know that. I know. But it's a start. It's me saying I'm willing to do the work to be better. To be someone worthy of being called her aunt. I told her I'd think about it. Talk to Lily. See how she felt. That evening, I asked Lily if she wanted to attend Olivia's wedding. She thought about it for a long time. Part of me wants to say no. To make them feel what it's like to be excluded. But that's not who I want to be. You don't owe them anything, I said. I know. But if they are really trying, maybe we should let them try. So we went to the wedding. It was beautiful, as I'd known it would be. The plantation house was lit with string lights, gardens in full bloom, everything photographed and perfect. But when we arrived, Olivia came directly to us, hugged Lily first, then me. Thank you for coming, as she said, and she meant it. My mother and father were careful with us. Tentative. They asked Lily about school, about her art, actually listened to her answers. It wasn't comfort yet. It wasn't healed. But it was different. At dinner, we sat at a table with Aunt Eleanor and Marcus, James and his wife, and some of Olivia's college friends. There was laughter. Warmth. Lily talked about her art school applications, about Rhode Island School of Design being her first choice, about the portfolio review process. My mother came to our table during dessert. She looked at Lily. May I see some of your work? Your mother mentioned you paint. It was such a small thing. Such an ordinary question. But it was the first time my mother had asked Lily directly about her art in 17 years. Lily pulled out her phone and showed her some photographs of recent paintings. My mother looked at each one carefully, asked questions, listened. When she left, Lily looked at me with something like wonder. That was weird. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. Just weird. 4 months passed. Lily completed her applications, endured the waiting, and finally received acceptances from multiple schools. Rhode Island School of Design offered her a scholarship. When the letter came, she screamed. Lily, my quiet, composed daughter, actually screamed with joy. Graduation approached. As valedictorian, she'd be giving a speech. She worked on it for weeks, writing and revising, reading drafts aloud to me and Daniel, testing different approaches. The day before graduation, she showed me the final version. Are you sure? I asked after reading it. I'm sure, she said. Graduation day was warm and sunny. A football field was set up with rows of chairs, the stage decorated in school colors, families crowding the bleachers. My parents came. Olivia came. Several aunts and uncles. Aunt Eleanor and Marcus. A fuller representation of family than we'd had at any event in years. Lily gave her speech in that same steady, quiet voice that somehow carried across the field. She talked about seeds. About how some are planted deliberately, carefully tended, and some plant themselves in unexpected places. About how the strongest gardens are often the ones that embrace both the planned and the serendipitous. She talked about family as a choice. Not in a bitter way, but as an observation. That we choose daily how to show up for the people we love. That presence is a choice. That belonging is created through consistent, intentional acts of inclusion. She talked about being seen. For most of my life, as she said, I felt like I was watching from outside a window. Close enough to see everything but separated by glass. It took my mom 13 years to recognize what I'd known all along, that some of us were standing in the cold while others enjoyed the warmth. She chose to open the door. She chose me. And in doing so, she taught me that love isn't just what we feel. It's what we do. Who we protect. The boundaries we set. In the bleachers, I saw my mother crying. Not delicate tears but actual sobbing, her shoulders shaking while my father held her hand. Lily concluded, we don't get to choose the circumstances we're born into. But we do get to choose what we grow. Who we become. Who we bring into our gardens and who we give space to bloom. I'm grateful to everyone who chose to tend the garden with me. And I'm grateful to those who are learning to see the garden differently. Growth is always possible. Change is always available. Thank you. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, my mother approached us. Her face was blotchy from crying, makeup ruined, and she didn't seem to care. "Lily," she said, and her voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I didn't try. And I'm ashamed of the time I wasted and the hurt I caused." Lily looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, Thank you for saying that. Naughty, it's okay. Naughty, I forgive you. Just acknowledgement. The beginning of something, maybe. Or at least the recognition of an attempt." My mother reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is for college. For Rhode Island. I know it can't make up for anything, but I want to contribute to your future." Lily took the envelope carefully. Inside was a check for $20,000 and a card. She opened the card and I saw, over her shoulder, my mother's handwriting, "Ear to Lily. Love, Grandma." Not Margaret. Not Emily's mother. Grandma. Lily looked up at my mother with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Grandma." That one word hung in the air between them, tentative and fragile and full of possibility. We went to dinner that evening at a local Italian restaurant. Not just immediate family, but Aunt Eleanor and Marcus, James, and his family, and the Hendersons from next door who'd been surrogate grandparents to Lily for years, never once questioning her place in our family. The table was crowded and loud. People talked over each other, sharing food, telling stories, laughing. My mother sat next to Lily and asked her questions about her plans, about her art, really engaging instead of offering polite distance. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments, conversations that hit tender spots, reminders of all the years that couldn't be recovered. But it was real. Present. An attempt at connection instead of performance. Watching Lily laugh with her cousin Marcus about something on his phone, watching my father lean across the table to ask Daniel about a construction project, watching all of these people making space for each other, I felt something settle in me. We hadn't lost a family. We'd grown a better one. Summer passed quickly. Lily spent hours in her studio, creating new work, preparing for college. She and my mother had lunch together twice, just the two of them. Lily reported that it was a weird but okay. High praise, coming from her. My father revised his trust. He called to tell me, his attorney voice formal but warm. "I'm having the documents redrawn. Lily is included in all inheritance provisions. Equal shares with all grandchildren. It should have been that way from the beginning." I thanked him. Not just for the money, though that mattered. For the recognition. The acknowledgement that she was his granddaughter in every way that mattered. In August, we drove to Providence to move Lily into her dorm. My parents met us there, helping carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs in the summer heat. My mother fussed over Lily's room arrangement, suggesting places to hang art, bringing extra towels and kitchen supplies. When it was time to leave, my mother hugged Lily hard. "Call anytime," she said. "I mean it. Anytime." Lily hugged her back. "I will." Daniel and I were the last to go. We stood in the parking lot beside our car, delaying the inevitable departure. "You're going to be amazing," I told Lily. "You already are." She hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. For choosing me. For protecting me. For finally seeing what I've been living with. You didn't just adopt me," she continued, pulling back to look at me directly. You showed me how to build a family. How to be brave. How to set boundaries without apology. I was crying. Daniel was crying. Lily was crying. We stood in that parking lot holding each other. This family would build through intention and choice and stubborn love. Go create beautiful things, Daniel said. She smiled through her tears. I will. We watched her walk back into the dorm, backpack over her shoulder, turning at the door to wave one more time. And then she was gone, beginning this new chapter, carrying with her the knowledge that she was loved unconditionally, protected fiercely, and never again would she have to make herself small to fit into spaces that refused to expand for her. On the drive home, Daniel and I were quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "You saved her." No, I said. I just finally learned to see clearly. To stop making excuses. To choose her every single time without qualification or apology. That's what saving looks like sometimes, he said. Maybe he was right. I thought about the garden metaphor Lily had used in her speech. About seeds planted deliberately and ones that plant themselves. About tending carefully and allowing space for growth. Our family wasn't defined by blood or obligation or tradition. It was defined by who chose to stay. Who chose to do the work. Who chose to expand their hearts instead of defending their comfort. My parents were learning. Olivia was trying. Some cousins had stepped up. Aunt Eleanor had become a real presence in our lives. And the ones who couldn't or wouldn't change? They faded naturally, not because we forced them out, but because they couldn't exist in a family structure built on genuine inclusion rather than hierarchy and bloodlines. We stopped at a rest area somewhere in Virginia. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I got a text from Lily, and made it through orientation. My roommate is amazing. I love it here. Thank you for everything. I love you. I showed Daniel the message. She's going to be okay, he said. Better than okay, I agreed. We got back in the car and continued the drive home. To our house. To the life we'd built. To the family we'd protected and the boundaries we'd set, and the love we'd chosen to prioritize over comfort or tradition or other people's expectations. I thought about the first time I'd held Lily, a tiny 4-year-old with serious eyes and careful movements, already learning to make herself small, already learning to watch and wait. I'd promised her then that she would be loved. That she would be safe. That she would belong. It had taken me 13 years to fully understand what that promise required. 13 years to recognize that love isn't passive. It doesn't accommodate harmful patterns for the sake of peace. It doesn't ask children to endure exclusion in the hope that adults will eventually evolve. Love is active. Protective. Fierce when necessary. Love sets boundaries and holds them. Love says, you matter. Your dignity matters. Your belonging is non-negotiable. Love chooses, clearly and without apology, again and again. The highway stretched ahead of us, familiar and certain. Daniel drove steadily while I watched the landscape pass by. Behind us, our daughter was beginning her next adventure. Ahead of us, home waited, quiet and peaceful. We hadn't lost anything that mattered. We'd only released what was never truly ours. And what we'd built in its place, this family defined by choice and presence and fierce, protective love, was stronger than blood. Deeper than tradition, and more real than any bond based merely on obligation. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.